You don't fit into the image of a perfect day. My sister Sandra's words reached my ears, devoid of any emotion. Behind her stretched the breathtakingly lavish wedding venue, the one that reportedly cost $920,000. I clutched the hem of the silk dress I'd bought just for it. It took me 2 hours to drive there with my 15-year-old daughter, Hannah. I'd followed the formal dress code written on the invitation, gone to the salon, and done everything I could to show my happiness for her. But there she was waiting for us at the entrance, radiant in her pure white wedding gown, together with my parents standing firmly on both sides and my younger sister, Abby. Their expressions were uniformly stiff, as if rehearsed, and the way they looked at me and Hannah made it clear we were not welcome. "What are you talking about, Sandra?" My voice came out thin and trembling, even to my own surprise. Sandra's perfectly groomed brows furrowed slightly as she sighed. "Please, Kelly, try to understand. This is the most important day of my life. Everything has to be perfect. The perfect family, the perfect friends, the perfect pictures. You understand, don't you?" "Perfect." "Yes." This time, my mother cut in. "Sandra made a guest list just for couples, you see. Everyone here today is a happily married pair, so well." Her words trailed off as her gaze flickered between me and Hannah. It didn't take long to grasp what she meant. A single mother and her daughter. That was the imperfection, the noise in their carefully composed image of perfection. That's awful. Hannah's barely audible whisper pierced my chest. She held back her tears, glaring bravely at her aunt and grandparents. That courage, so small yet so strong, felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Then my father spoke, his tone heavy and final. "Kelly, today is Sandra's day. Do as she says. Don't make a scene." It was an order, the same commanding tone I'd obeyed my whole life as a sister, a daughter, the one who never caused trouble. It had always been that way. For the sake of family harmony, I'd swallow my emotions again and again. But when I looked at my daughter, something inside me snapped. She had done nothing wrong. Just by being here, she was rejected. And yet she still stood tall, trying to be strong for me. I didn't argue. I didn't scream or curse them. I simply smiled, a cold, brittle smile, pulled my trembling daughter close, and turned my back on them. "All right, Sandra. Congratulations. Have your perfect day." And with that, I walked away. The cheerful music and laughter from the extravagant venue echoed behind me as we made our way to the parking lot. Beside me, Hannah was quietly crying. Once inside the car, she finally let go, sobs shaking her small frame. "Mom, why didn't you say anything back? It's so unfair." Before starting the engine, I turned to her and gently wiped the tears from her cheeks. "I know, sweetheart. I've never been angrier in my life. Seeing them hurt you like that, I wanted to scream." "Then why didn't you?" "Hannah, listen to me." I met her eyes firmly. Yelling in a place like that would only drag us down to their level. There's something more important than fighting back with words. You have to show what's truly wrong. Not by what you say, but by what you do. And I've already made up my mind. My voice was quiet but unwavering. Hannah sniffled, her crying easing just a little. "Do you trust me, sweetheart? I promise you. I'll make sure no one ever hurts you like that again. I'll make sure of it. That's a promise." She probably didn't understand what I truly meant. Not yet. But she must have seen the determination in my eyes because she gave a small, firm nod. On the way home, Hannah fell asleep in the passenger seat, the tension finally leaving her body. Tear stains still glimmered faintly on her cheeks. Why did she have to be the one to suffer? Anger and sorrow surged through me, hot and unrelenting. My fingers tightened unconsciously around the steering wheel. When we got home, I tucked Hannah into bed. Then I sank into the living room sofa, the years flashing before my eyes like a film reel. Why had I sacrificed so much of myself? For that family? The answer lay with my grandfather, the only person who had ever truly been on my side, who passed away several years ago. He was the only one who never laughed when I said I wanted to become a dentist. "Kelly, that sharp mind of yours is a gift from God. Don't ever let anyone stand in the way of your dream." When I decided to raise Hannah on my own, he was also the only one who simply said, "You'll be fine," and loved us both more deeply than anyone else ever did. All of that had been my greatest source of strength. A few months before he passed away, when he realized his time was running short, he called only me to his side and confided in me a plan. Kelly, I can't leave my assets directly to them. You know what they're like. They'll squander everything without a shred of gratitude. So, while I'm still alive, I'm going to make some arrangements. Listen carefully. First, he told the family it was for tax purposes and future estate management, and then quietly transferred the titles of his major assets into my name. Of course, my father and mother protested. Why in Kelly's name? They demanded. But my grandfather silenced them with a single thunderous statement. Kelly is the only one among you who truly understands the value of money. This is final. The amount you'll inherit doesn't change, but she'll oversee the flow of funds. She is, in effect, this family's financial steward. If anyone has a problem with that, I'll cut off all support right now. For my arrogant, prideful family, being forced to rely on the very person they had always looked down on, their lesser daughter and sister, must have been unbearable. Still, they chose humiliation over losing access to money and reluctantly accepted the arrangement. To them, I was nothing more than a convenient administrator of grandfather's estate, and they willfully ignored the fact that, legally, the assets belonged to me. Just before he passed, my grandfather held my hand and entrusted me with his true will. Kelly, the assets are now yours in every sense. Use them however you wish. But if you can find it in your heart to forgive them, please, make sure they don't end up destitute. That's my last request. Through my tears, I promised him I would. But things unraveled far faster and far worse than I had imagined. The moment he was gone, my father, mother, and sisters began to spend money like wild animals let out of a cage. My father quit his job announcing, "I'll live as an investor now." My mother and sisters followed suit. Luxury cars, designer brands, overseas vacations, endless parties. As the so-called financial steward, I warned them again and again. Stop spending like this. Live sensibly. At this rate, you'll go bankrupt. But none of them listened. You're just the manager, not the owner. Don't lecture us. Grandpa's fortune is endless. Stop worrying so much. They laughed in my face and kept wasting everything. And within just 2 years of grandfather's death, the fortune was completely gone. I'll never forget the despair I felt the day I saw the bank statement. Not even enough left to cover the monthly mortgage. I was forced to make a choice. Tell them the truth and watch them fall apart. Or keep grandfather's final promise and silently hold up the crumbling family finances myself. If I did nothing, the house would be seized, and they'd end up on the streets. And when that happened, they'd surely come running to me and Hannah for help. That I could not allow. In the end, I chose the latter. From that day on, I began secretly transferring part of my income into the so-called estate management account. My family never knew. They had no idea that their lavish lives, the house, the cars, the parties, weren't funded by grandfather's long-gone inheritance, but by the hard-earned money of the single mother they despised. The mortgage, $3,500 a month. My sister's car loan, $450 a month, and even Sandra's $920,000 wedding fund. I've been the one holding up this illusion all alone, but I always knew it couldn't last forever. I'd long decided that when their arrogance crossed the final line, when they lost their humanity entirely, I would cut them off and let reality teach them what they truly were. For that day, I'd already hired a lawyer and quietly prepared every legal measure. And at the wedding, I finally understood. The day I'd been waiting for, the one I dreaded deep down, had come at last. The people I'd been protecting weren't my family. They were arrogant, heartless monsters. People who could hurt my daughter without a second thought. Not one more cent of my money would go to them. Grandpa, I've kept my promise long enough, haven't I? I whispered those words, picked up my phone, and sent a short message. The person on the other end of my message was the lawyer I had secretly hired months ago. A sharp, discreet professional specializing in foreclosures and asset recovery. My message contained only 2 words. Please proceed now. The reply came 30 seconds later. Okay, I'll start the process. That short sentence marked the beginning of everything. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the file that contained every detail of the Johnson family's finances, organized down to the last dollar. The first task was to log into the bank's online system and stop all automatic payments connected to the Johnsons' accounts, starting with the mortgage on my parents' grand house. $3,500 a month. With a single click, next month's payment was canceled. Payment suspended. Next was my younger sister Abby's bright red sports car loan. $450 a month. Suspended. Then came the family credit card, the one they used for everything: gas, gourmet groceries, beauty treatments, gym memberships. Every charge, every indulgence had been deducted directly from my accounts. I logged into the card company's website and, without hesitation, pressed deactivate. In a few days, they would find themselves humiliated at a checkout counter somewhere. Their cards declined, their illusions shattered. It took less than 30 minutes to end every transfer, every connection. One by one, the chains of duty that had weighed on my shoulders for years began to fall away. For the first time, I realized something simple. The $5,000 or more I had been sending every month could now all go toward Hannah's future. The thought alone made me smile. This wasn't revenge. It was restoration, putting love and resources back where they truly belonged. I opened a new bank account and named it the Hannah Fund. From now on, the same amount I once sent to my family would be deposited there each month. When I completed the first transfer, a deep, quiet sense of peace filled my chest, a kind of happiness I hadn't felt in years. There was no one left I needed to explain myself to. No one left I owed anything to. They would now face, in silence, the consequences of their own choices. That night, I sat beside Hannah's bed and held her hand. "Mom, it's okay now," she whispered softly, her eyes half open, voice calm and strong, as if she understood everything. "Yes, it's okay now. From now on, every bit of my time and money will be for us. Just you and me. I promise." I kissed her forehead and gently wrapped my arms around her. The next morning, I woke up to a strange, serene peace. I focused completely on my patients at the clinic, and after work, I met Hannah for dinner. The world, freed from the weight of my family's demands, suddenly seemed more vivid, more alive, the air lighter than I'd ever known. Not a single message came from them that day. But on my phone screen, they were still desperately showcasing their glamorous lives. Sandra's social media was flooded with photos from her perfect $920,000 wedding, followed by posts flaunting her honeymoon in an exclusive European resort. Abby, too, filled her feed with pictures from the wedding, beaming newlyweds, sparkling champagne, and her own carefully curated, glamorous life. My parents appeared in those same photos, smiling proudly and commenting, "Our perfect daughters." No one seemed to remember what had happened the day before. I scrolled through their posts, feeling nothing. They were already distant, like shadows moving behind glass. They continued living as though nothing had changed, unaware that the ground beneath them was already crumbling. The first signs of the coming storm appeared 3 days after the wedding. My phone lit up with a hysterical call from Sandra. I ignored it. Moments later, a furious text appeared. "Kelly, what's going on?" "Our card didn't work at the hotel restaurant. On our honeymoon. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? There must be something wrong with the accounts you manage. Fix this immediately." I looked at the message once, closed my phone, and set it down. Whether she was embarrassed or enraged no longer mattered to me. This was probably where it all began. That evening, the phone rang again. This time, it was my mother. When I didn't pick up, her anxious voice filled the answering machine. "Kelly, I just spoke to Sandra and she said her card doesn't work. Is that true? I just got declined at the usual grocery store myself. If there's been some sort of mistake, please fix it right away. I have lunch plans with my friends tomorrow." Even then, her voice carried that same old tone, that quiet assumption that I would, of course, fix everything for them. They still believed this was nothing more than a clerical error. The real panic hit them that Friday. That day, I received a message from a friend, just a link to a short video someone in the neighborhood had posted. In the video, a large tow truck was parked in front of the Johnson family mansion, a bright red sports car hooked up by its front wheels, being lifted helplessly into the air. It was Abby's beloved red sports car. And there she was, frozen in disbelief, shouting at the driver, trying to grab his arm, while curious neighbors watched from a distance. It was only the prelude, the first act in a long, inevitable collapse. The final blow came on Monday, after the weekend. My attorney had delivered something to the mansion's mailbox, an eviction notice. The document clearly stated that the property was legally owned by me, and that since the mortgage payments had been stopped, the current residents no longer had the right to live there. They were to vacate the house within 30 days, or if they wished to remain, sign a new lease agreement with me, the legal owner, at a monthly rent of $5,000. If they refused either option, legal proceedings would follow. I didn't have to imagine my parents' faces when they received it. To them, I had always been merely the caretaker of the estate, not the owner. But now, the truth they had long refused to face, that the house legally belonged entirely to me, had been forced upon them by a single sheet of paper. That night, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My father's furious shouting, my mother's sobs, Sandra's tirades, Abby's angry, panicked messages, a storm of emotion flickering across my screen, one notification after another. After letting the endless ringing echo for a while, I finally answered my father's call. Kelly, what the hell do you think you're doing? Do you have any idea what that letter from the lawyer says? His voice exploded through the receiver, but mine, to my own surprise, was calm. Of course I know. I'm the one who arranged for it. A lease agreement with you. Have you lost your mind? I answered without the slightest trace of hesitation. I haven't lost anything. Everything written there is true. True? Don't be ridiculous. That house belonged to your grandfather. You're just the manager of the assets. You can't do this. There was no trace of authority left in his voice, only confusion and desperation. I told him slowly and clearly, I can, and I already have. If you want to know why, you'll have to meet me in person. I'll give you one chance. One opportunity for an explanation. 1 week from now. Christmas night. Be at the house, all of you. I'll tell you everything then. Christmas? Don't be absurd. Undo this now, Kelly. Before he could finish shouting, I quietly ended the call. There was nothing more to say. In the days leading up to Christmas, the Johnson family slid, slowly but unmistakably, down the slope of ruin. My silence became their greatest fear. And then Christmas arrived. Snow fell softly that night as I stood before the mansion holding Hannah's hand. The house that had once symbolized wealth and vanity now looked dim, lifeless, almost hollow. When I rang the doorbell, it took a while before the door opened. My father appeared, looking gaunt and worn. The moment he saw my face, his expression flickered between shock and desperate hope. Kelly, you kept us waiting for a week. What the hell is going on? Tell me. I said nothing and walked past him into the house. In the living room, my mother, Sandra, and Abby sat on the couch. Several pieces of once luxurious furniture now bore foreclosure tags, giving the room a bleak, impoverished air. Their eyes all turned toward me, burning with anger, distrust, and a faint pleading trace of hope. Kelly, you did this. How could you be so cruel? What do you have against us? My mother let out a shrill scream. Almost as if on cue, Sandra rose to her feet. She's right. You've stolen our assets, haven't you? Put everything back the way it was. This is a crime. Their words dripped with that same absurd delusion, the unshakable belief that they were the victims. I quietly took off my coat and placed my leather briefcase on the bare living room table. Then, one by one, I pulled out several thick folders and laid them neatly before their eyes. Resentment? Embezzlement? No, I'm just here to end the game. At the sound of my calm voice, they all fell silent. I opened the first folder. It contained the bank statements from right after my grandfather's death. This is the record of what he truly left us, the real inheritance. You spent it all in just 2 years, every dollar of it. Here's the proof, including the amount Father lost in stocks. I could see the color drain from my father's face. Next, I opened another folder. It detailed the financial statements from my clinic, and the steady flow of money transferred from it into the so-called estate management account. And this is what's been sustaining your lifestyle for the last 10 years, ever since the inheritance ran dry. Your mortgage payments, the car loans, your credit card bills. Every cent came from here. The black ink on the pages told the truth more mercilessly than I ever could. Sandra snatched one of the documents, scanning the rows of numbers in disbelief. Her eyes widened as understanding and panic set in. No, this can't be. But this is from your clinic. That's right, I said quietly. For 10 years, the money you all used so casually, every dinner, every trip, every luxury, came from what I earned at that clinic. Grandfather's inheritance was gone long, long ago. The living room fell completely silent. At last, they realized the truth that they had been standing not on solid ground, but on a thin sheet of ice all along. Then, for the final blow, I looked each of them in the eye and spoke, slowly and clearly. I repeated the words Sandra had thrown at me on her wedding day. You said a single mother didn't fit your perfect wedding image, so I thought maybe a single mother's money doesn't fit your perfect life either. The words cut through their pride like glass. My mother collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing. My father covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. Sandra and Abby just stared at me, pale and speechless. There was nothing left for me to say. I closed my briefcase and gently took Hannah's hand. Come on, Hannah, let's go home. Our home. As I turned my back on them and opened the front door, the cold night air swept into the room. A full year has passed since that night. The people I once called family have vanished completely from my life. From what I've heard through distant relatives and acquaintances, their lives since then have been far from easy. Sandra is in the middle of divorce proceedings. Apparently, her husband's decision was sealed when he discovered the truth, that Sandra had insulted her own sister and her teenage niece, banning us from the wedding because we didn't fit her image. Once he saw how willingly she could wound her family for the sake of appearances, his love for her dissolved entirely. Her social media has been silent ever since. My parents, after surrendering the mansion, moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. My father, despite his age, swallowed his pride and took a job as a security guard, while my mother began working part-time. As for Abby, she's juggling 3 part-time jobs, barely keeping herself afloat. She's finally learning, through experience, what it means to live by one's own effort, something she once mocked others for. I feel no sympathy for them. They're simply reaping what they sowed. Meanwhile, Hannah and I have begun a new life. I sold the family estate and moved into a penthouse. This afternoon, Hannah and I sat together on the large sofa in the living room, sipping coffee as we looked through several brochures. They were for summer programs at prestigious art universities across Europe. Mom, do you really think I can go to one of these? She looked up at me, eyes sparkling with excitement. I smiled and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Of course you can, sweetheart. You can go anywhere you want. That's what the Hannah Fund is for. The money that once vanished to feed the Johnsons' vanity now fuels the limitless future of the person who means more to me than anyone else in the world. Hannah leaned her head on my shoulder, gazing out at the city skyline. Mom, we're really happy now, aren't we? Yes, we truly are, I answered quietly, stroking her soft hair.